Thanks everyone for joining in. Always happy to see that people are eager to learn about the new features that we're offering in Knowify. Just again, for a high-level overview, before I jump in here, this is just going to be a quick demonstration of different features that we've added in our release that went out on Saturday. Just to highlight a couple of them, we now have the ability to copy a job and contract. So you can, not start from scratch. You just use an old job as a template, copy it, then you can, send it out to a different client or however you want to manage this. We've also made some improvements to our scheduling system, as well as added some job logs and a lot of other neat features just to get a couple extra pieces added into Knowify, so we really can be a little bit more of a one-stop shop for all of you. Again, I am recording this webinar and it will be posted on YouTube later. We'll be sending it out to all of our users just so everyone can view it later on. And I'm going to keep everyone on mute during the extent of the webinar, but we will be doing some Q&A at the end. Feel free to submit any questions you have in our chat box if you want me to circle back to them afterwards and answer them that way. So I'm going to start by just showing you guys how our copy job feature is working. You'll actually see this when you open up a new project. In the summary tab where you normally would be checking on profitability of a project, seeing the job's location, and just some general information. Next to your edit, this little drop down is going to have this copy job button. What this is going to do is create a duplicate of this project. We automatically store the same client, but we have the option to do is swap this out for a new client from your database. I'll give the job another name just for reference. And you see this create copy button. This will just store the project in my system using the same contract terms. So if you have really complex contracts that you don't want to have to rebuild every time, this is a nice way to kind of automate this. We also have a lot of Knowify users who are sending the same bid to several different GCs because they don't know who's going to win the project at the end of the day. This way you don't have to rebuild from scratch every time. We just want to be able to automate the whole thing for you a little bit more. Another improvement we made that was widely requested was around how we're going to present this breakdown or bill of materials. We found that a lot of people were actually using this to quote the prices to the client by saying, like, let's just put in some materials here, and this is going to be using my database. So what we're doing is just putting in a list of materials that I'm going to end up using. Here's my 2x6s, really however I want to lay it out. And I could put in, all my pricing. And in a situation like this is, how many I'm going to buy, my internal pricing. I could plug in the markup. And, traditionally, this has always been presented on the proposal document that we send out. But since a lot of people are using this for their budgeting, we used to have to, manually go in and adjust your contracts to hide this from the client. Now we have this little button where you can say, right now it's going to be displayed, but if I click this, it's going to be hidden. So just to show you our current default view, it'll create that list and show you unit pricing just to give the client a little bit more information on what goes into that final price for, in this case, site prep. But you now have the option to choose which one of these are displayed. So you don't have to put this on every single proposal. So if you're using simple or advanced job costing, you can just kind of get in there, rattle off your list of items for your internal reference, and so you can quote the price, but it doesn't need to be shown to the client that way. Another improvement that I'm going to show you is around our logs, but before I get to that, I just want to show you a neat update around our e-signature. We can turn on a new feature in your account that will add an ID to any email that goes out with a corresponding document. I think this works for both invoicing and your proposals. And this makes it so Knowify can actually read these documents when they're sent out. So if a client responds to you via email instead of via your Knowify e-signature, it'll actually store this in the job log for this file. So what I'll first show you is that job log, and you'll see that it's actually going to be an additional tab under each of these projects, and that's going to be located right here. And so I can see everything that's happened so far. And this is just a place for me to get some general information on everything that's gone on in this project. Here's me saving the project as a draft. I can see that it's stored in here as a PDF. Here's the email that went out. And in general, we would want them to be able to open this up and, click here, sign the document in Knowify. But we found that very often, a client isn't going to click the link, but what they will do is say, this looks great, please move forward. Now, obviously, you're going to get this email, but in the interest in keeping everything in one place, Knowify can identify that this email contains this ID in the subject line, which means if I come back to my logs, let me just rerun these really quick. We're actually going to look for that email in our database and pull it back in here. So even though the email wasn't even sent, inside Knowify or anything like that, we're going to keep a record of it just so you can always reference this here. This looks great, please move forward. They didn't digitally e-sign it, which isn't quite as fun, but I can still come in here and switch this to active. And so that's just a way to get a little bit more of a live updating log while we go through here. We want to get as much information here as possible. Another update we made is for people who are using simple mode jobs. Traditionally, budgets have been saved for people who go through the professional style of job costing and entering a budget first. What you can do now is retroactively put in the budget after the contract's live. You see you have this set budgets option at the bottom of the plan, where I can say like this job has a $5,000 material budget, a $6,000 labor budget, and I'm going to have to hire a sub for $2,000. So even though I didn't start the project plan by putting that information in, it just automatically set these for me. So when I start tracking all of my labor, material, and subcontractor cost, I actually have it updating at the top of the screen here. So I can kind of see my progress and get a little bit more information. And, we can potentially give you a work in progress revenue number that way. Another improvement we made, and we've always had scheduling in our system, but we added the ability to change your dates inside your plan and track section. For what it's worth, we actually used to have this, and we did away with it for a while. But now we've brought it back, and it's kind of new, improved, and better than ever. In that, instead of writing in a start date and an end date, you can actually say like, we're going to be working on this for 5 days, and it'll actually automate the end date for you. It's a little bit more traditional in a lot of construction scheduling to have number of days rather than a standard start date end date. And I can alternate between calendar days and business days if necessary. I'll go ahead and submit these, and I'm going to show you another improvement around our scheduling. We always have kind of automated the job board as our go-to location when you're doing scheduling in Knowify, but a lot of people want to zoom out a little bit further than just 1 week. So we actually add a little bit more dynamic function to our corporate calendar. This way I can actually zoom out on a project and see, here's my project 1037. That's what I've set up for this webinar. If I want to push this back, I can actually, drag these dates around, and you'll see it actually moves using the set number of days that I put in for this project. But I can also extend the end of phases as well. So let's say, we still want to keep the same start date, but I want to extend the end date. And so this will just update in the job board, it'll update in the project plan. And it's just a quicker way for me to move things around. So like I can see that, framing probably won't start with this ticket and all these other jobs. I'm going to go ahead and just scoot that over one day. And it just makes my schedule a little bit easier to manage all in one place that way. Another big improvement that we made, and this will actually end up being a little bit more relevant to some of our Canadian accounts, but we kind of revamped our purchasing screen. Those of you who are very familiar with Knowify will realize that this is now all kind of going through a different flow. You could still get all the same types of purchase in the system, credit, debit, reimbursements, and of course our classic vendor will invoice. Only now the screen is broken down to mimic the bills a little bit more. So what you can actually do is input the line per each job and per each phase of the job. Traditionally we've always added one purchase per the job on the whole, and we wanted to give you a little bit more use out of this. So now you can have one purchase in the system, but allocate each line to a different job or a different phase of the same job. So I can come in here and say, this is for this job, and then let's bring in something for 1035. Here's for this job. 1034, which I've already closed out now. So I get a little bit more of a dynamic costing set up for my purchase orders. Um, as part of this in a Canadian account, you'll actually now be able to put in different tax rates per each line as well, and they'll carry over into bills. And for people who are, having pass-through tax that they don't want added to the cost of jobs, we can actually work with that. Where even though we're using tax as part of the purchase, it's in the bill side of things. We will remove that from the job cost, so you no longer have to worry about subtracting that at the end of the day or anything like that. We keep it all managed in one place. That's really the biggest ones that we added. There's also a couple of small improvements you'll see around the system. We actually have a full change log that you can access on our blog, and I believe we sent out an email about it. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot an email to support@knowify.com. We're always happy to answer more questions. I also just kind of wanted to add as a side note, this is actually kind of a special webinar. We have our friends over at Permit Zone in the office with us today. They're visiting because we have been working on a neat new integration with their software. And basically what they'll do for you is apply for a permit at the start of your project. So basically you don't have to go through the process of sending anyone to the county office or filing. They'll actually take care of the whole thing for you. And what we're doing with them is setting up a direct integration where when you set up your project, you can actually choose the apply for permit button. It'll pull into their software. They'll fetch it, take care of all of the permitting work for you, and bring you right back. And so, using a lot of data from Knowify, it'll be very automated. You won't have to double enter a lot of this information. And we'll definitely be following up a lot more on that in the future. But if you have any interest in learning more about it, we can always give you a little bit of a sneak preview. Again, just shoot an email over to us, support@knowify.com, and we can get you started. Thanks, everyone, for joining in today. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But other than that, you have a nice rest of your day.